Yeah.
Good seeing you guys. It seems today people are really sort of slow coming in. Let me put it that way. I hope more people will be joining us.
Yeah.
Due time. But yeah, you know, I was just telling Tombe here earlier that we are taking it really slow this time around on this particular topic, because this is our 5th installment talking about the same topic. Obviously different things, but in the same scope, same topic. So we're trying to make sure that we soak a lot in it and really assimilate as much as possible. We try and have a bit of a discussion and hopefully really try.
I think it's good to take it slow, because I think my pastor says when I talk about money, people think I'm funny. You know, money is a big issue, so you can't just rush through. You know, I mean, when we talk about wealth, I mean, there is heaven's kingdom of heaven's wealth, but part of acquiring wealth is how to, you know, get money, and you know that, and it needs a lot of. We need to have those conversations. We need to have, you know, be friends with money, understand money, and all this. So if we rush through 1 or 2 topics, we can't understand. So it's something we need to go back over and over again. Investment, you know, how do we live the life we want to live? It's all about money.
Yeah.
You know, and most of us who come to this session, most of us are foreigners. The reason we're in this country in the first place is because of money.
We're looking for a better life, absolutely.
Yeah. When how do you get a better life? Money is involved.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean, for me, it's best to take it slow.
Absolutely, yeah. It's unfortunate, isn't it? Because it's a conversation that people tend to frown upon in a way. Like on one end of the scale, people look at you and think you're greedy, talking about money, or what kind of a person are you? On the other
those
end,
are poor people. Those are poor people who say that. You know, like someone say, "Oh, money is the root of all evil." I say, "Oh, you know what? It's because you're poor. If you had money, you wouldn't be saying the root of all evil." You know, I put a statement. I think I was reminded. I think it was 2 weeks ago. About 5 years, I put a status on my Facebook status, because Facebook has got this tendency of reminding me. And I say, whoever said money doesn't bring you happiness didn't know where to go shopping. You know, because money does bring happiness. I mean,
money does buy a lot of things. I can tell you that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you can say, "Oh, money, can buy your house, but not a home." But if you don't have money, you can't buy that house to create a home.
Tell me about it.
So
you know, I have a saying of my own. Money can be anything that you want.
Okay, break it down for me.
It means at the end of the day, what money does, it just accentuates what you already are inside.
Oh, like it amplifies you.
Yeah, that's all it does. Yeah. If you're a wrecking ball, if we give you more money, you will just given you a heavier and bigger ball to wreck everything. If you're a kind person and you're a good person, if we give you more money, there is only more goodness that will ever come out of you. So basically, when people talk of evil that comes from money, basically what they're saying is evil that comes from within themselves. Basically, that's how I look at it. It only amplifies what's already there.
Okay, now when you say that, there's this lady, right? She I think she died at 53, 50 something. It's been the news. She won the lottery a few years ago, and she said ever since she won the lottery, money made her miserable. But when she won the lottery, she was dishing money because everybody wanted money. She was giving the money away, you know. But at the end of the day, she ended up killing herself. I think this is when you say money amplifies you, but then look at what it turned to her. She was a giver, and she kept giving. But I think this is where Jim Rohn's statement comes in. If I give you $1 million, you better quickly become a millionaire.
Absolutely. Because having $1 million doesn't make you a millionaire. It's up here, my friend.
Yeah. Very true.
No, it's very true. I mean, you've touched on the point of giving. We spent a bit of time last time talking about that. Probably we spend a bit more time today when we talk about budgeting as well, because I think that's one area that we do so haphazardly. We talk about charity, and that good giving is really good and everything, but we never really plan our giving. We never really think of ways where we can give effectively, both in terms of the impact of our giving, but also in a way that we don't end up, you don't end up killing a cow because you're trying to milk it, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's another problem, and I think it affects us even more so, the diaspora community, because we're here with our families, but most of us, we also tend to support our families back home as well, whether that be parents, friends, communities, societies, the whole country, who knows. And as a result, we end up, that ends up wrecking our finances. I mean, on the surface, we may look at ourselves and think, oh, we're just great givers, which is brilliant. But then we're not doing it in a way that is sustainable. I think probably that's the right way to put it. We're not doing it in a way that is sustainable because we don't quite plan for it. We don't really, it's almost like we're living on an emergency mode all the time, basically. Whenever you receive a phone call from back home, you see your country code, it's an emergency, it's alarm bells ringing, because you know your finances are going to be thrown out the window for another couple of months because of that. So, when we talk about finance, affects us in so many ways, positively, negatively, neutrally, in so many ways. And so when we talk about the concept of money management, financial freedom, all this, there are so many things that come into play there. And we can only have that conversation that expansive if we kind of take it slow and really take time to have these conversations. So it's been really good so far. I'm really hoping it's going to help somebody, for those that are joining live, for those that will be watching the recorded version. I've tried to say to share it far and wide. I hope you guys have been doing the same as well, to try and just keep this conversation going, because I think it's really important for us to really have an alternative voice, or something different to think about, when it comes to issue of money. Something else I just wanted to point out really quickly before we actually start the actual talk is the fact that whenever we talk about money, there is always that tendency to focus on how do we make the money. It's almost like every time we talk about finance and about money, people think, right. So how am I going to make more money? How am I going to start a new business? How am I going to create more streams of income? How am I going to have more? How am I going to have more? And then we focus less of our attention on what we already have and what we're doing with it. I love Jesus's teaching, and so many times you see it in the Bible. Jesus would, when his disciples would come to him with a problem, most of the time he would actually point them towards what they already have. Like, remember that time they had 5,000 people that were hungry, and they came to him saying, like, oh, why don't we send them away for them to go and look for food? And he just said, what do you have? And they thought, we have only a little. What is this going to do? It's not going to make any difference. But the solution is actually what you already have in your hands, And we see that many times. Moses, the same thing. He goes complaining to God, like, why haven't you saved these people? We're struggling for so many years, this, that, and the other. And God says, what have you got in your hand? And he says, I've got this stick. What is this stick going to do? But we know what that turned out to be. So it's the same with finances. I mean, there is so much we can do with what already comes to our hands, and that's where financial management comes in. That's where the discipline comes in. That's where the tools we've been talking about, saving, investing, the budgeting, and all this that comes in. And sometimes we look at that and we think, that's not going to make much difference. But the truth is, if you don't get those right, even if you end up getting more money, like you were saying, even if you end up getting millions, if you're not already a millionaire, you're just going to lose it all the same way you lose 1,000. I mean, it doesn't take much to lose a million, trust me. Ask those that have gotten it before. It doesn't take much. I mean, I've not blown a million, far from it, but it's just like anything else. When you don't have it, you think it's a lot, you can't lose that. But ask Mike Tyson, he managed to blow $400 million in 10 years. I mean, how do you do that? That is blowing 40 million every year. That is what? 40 million every year is about 3.5 million every month. That is what? 100,000 every day, basically. Every single day he's burning out 100,000. It's ridiculous, but he managed to do that. And then some, because he ended up in debt after that. bankruptcy. So having more money is not necessarily the solution. Yes, we want to have more, we want to get in the promotions, get bigger salaries, add value to ourselves, becoming worth more, start a business, having extra streams of income, do more, we're entrepreneurs, we want to do more, absolutely. But when it comes to financial freedom, the secret lies in what we do with what we already have, rather than trying to run faster or try and do more, if you understand. It's that concept of working smart rather than working hard, if you understand what I mean. So it's the same concept can be applied when it comes to money. So and these tools, this is what these tools are all about. So I'm really excited for today. I really hope we're going to have a fantastic discussion. I can see Rennie's really fired up. Tom is there ready to go. Stephen was on the road. I'm sure he's probably gotten where he was going. So he's going to be up and ready and firing in all cylinders as well. Hi, Grace.
Hi, Charles. Hi, how are you?
How are you? You're really quite tucked away there. We can't see your face today.
Yeah, I've been listening. I like what you just said. That is, when you talk about money, we think about having more, making more. But we have to make do with what we've already have.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
And manage it. Yeah, that's absolutely.
It. And I believe with all my heart that the secret of wealth is in what we already have.
Yes.
Not so much on the things that are out there. And I believe anybody can be a millionaire. But the thing is, well, that's if you're aspiring to be a millionaire, that is. But the key to doing that successfully is to really learn to manage.
Yes. Yeah.
And management of money, it makes absolutely no difference whether you're managing a tenner or £100 or $1 million.
Yeah.
The skills, the tools, the discipline, the psychology of it is exactly the same.
Yes.
And therefore, once we've learned that, I think it really helps us to try and change that way of thinking. So I'm really excited, Grace. I really look forward to it.
Yeah.
Hi, Monica.
I'm too good. That's I'm showing emoji of laughing because I know that's the area I need more.
Yeah, me too.
I can't wait. Thank you, Chad.
Me too. I'm excited to have you with us today. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Hi, Boke.
Hiya.
How are you?
Well, thank you. Glad I made it today.
Yeah.
Just reminded me. I nearly forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So giving, I do give a lot. People think God wanted me to give. So how do I manage that?
What, giving?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we get stuck with that straight away. Actually, I was saying that before about giving. That giving a lot is good, and the only issue is we need to be planned givers.
Yeah, I don't plan. I just give.
And planned giving goes hand in hand with budget. Something that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
That when you're doing your budget, you also have to budget what you want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'll give my own budget as an example. I mean, in my budget, I have a budget for my what I give to my parents. I have a budget for charity. I have a budget for what I'll give to my friends. I mean, it's all budgeted and it all comes out of my income every month. I mean, it's not much, but it's something that comes out little by little each month. And after several months, for instance, I might end up with a considerable pot that is actually for giving. And therefore, when someone comes to me and says, Charles, I need a help. Can you help me with this and this? All I do, I just look into my pots of charity or family or whatever it is that it is in my budget, and that is what will determine how much I could give. So if I tell someone that I haven't got anything to give you, I'm not saying that I haven't got any money. But what I'm saying is I don't have money that is budgeted to give. If that makes sense. I may have money for rent. I may have money for my kids' food. I may have money for my kids' uniform. I may have money for my fuel, but that is not money for me to give, if that makes sense. So unless I budget it, it's bound to end up wrecking my finances. And that's why people end up happening, because you end up in a crossroad where you feel like I'm obliged to give, I have to give, and giving is a good thing. But then because you didn't plan for it, it ends up coming out of something that you had something else, and therefore it kind of messes up the finances. So the secret to giving successfully and happily, as the Bible says, give cheerfully.
Yeah.
The secret to actually doing that, you have to be a planned giver. You plan your giving, you budget your giving, you put money away for giving, you put money away for charity. You know, like Paul said, as you can tell, I love the Bible so much. As Paul said, I think he was talking to the Macedonians or something, and he said, look, if he was actually telling them before he even went, he said, look, you guys, I want to do these collections and keep that money. It's almost like, you know, have a savings, you know, keep that in your purse, collect it, keep it in your purse, put it aside. When I come, take it to the
I read that.
So putting money away for giving what do you guys, what do others think? Do you guys agree with my assessment? Do you have something to add? What do you think?
We have to be disciplined then. Discipline. Discipline.
I'm coming in.
Go for it, Rennie.
I think I agree with you, Charles. It's good to give. Even the Bible says, whatever you give, it will. You say it's pressed, shaken, and run it over. So it's always good to give, but we have to give within the boundaries of budget. So in your earnings, you should say, even look, Jesus doesn't ask for a lot. Jesus says, you know what, they say, 10%. If God wants 10%, right? So you could say, 10% I keep to myself, and then 10% I give to family. So within the earnings that you have, that you work within that 10%, But the best advice I can give you, and I know you won't take it, just lose your numbers.
Try us.
lose your numbers.
Wouldn't take it.
Lose your numbers and you lose your relatives.
If you know we don't take it, why are you telling us? Come on.
That's what I said. It's an advice. Look, the thing is, at the end of the day, you have a choice. But if on your journey to success and building wealth and all that stuff, there is so many people who will be there to try and stop you from getting to that destination. Yeah. So as I said, my advice would be you need to lose their numbers so that you can work on yourself. Because for many years, what it's been like, it's like a bucket on a crab. Yeah. So when one crab tries to get out of the bucket, the other one pulls the other crab down. So you find all of you in that bucket. But the best thing you can do is not to be part of the poor part of the family, so that you have to try and make yourself wealthy so that you can help them with that 10%. But say, because, put it like this, you earn £100 and say, I'm going to invest that £10 on Bitcoin, but then that 10 pounds, which would be your 10%, say that 10% you want to give to family. So because it's not invested, there is no way you can get it back. But how about this? Invest that 10%, and from the babies of that 10%, then you can be able to feed or lend money to family, because family always need money. So that's my 2 cents vibes.
What does everybody else think?
Can I say something, Charles, please?
Go for it, Tom.
I'll just go back on Renaissance point about the crabs in a bucket. I think we should, in terms of giving, instead of the crabs trying to pull you down, you should try and pull other people back up.
Right. So how do you suggest we do that, Tom? Any ideas?
Well, what I'm trying to say is that basically, giving back to people is like sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think may I say something really before?
Okay. All right. Okay.
Let me just finish off.
Okay, go for it.
What I was trying to say is that giving back is like a self-healing. You release the feel-good factors, the chemicals in your brain, and you feel good. You feel good.
May I add something on top of that, Tom? And I think that is really important. I don't think the question here, I don't think the issue here is whether giving is a good thing or it's not a good thing. Because I think we can agree, we can all agree that giving is good. That the more we give, the better. I don't think there is any question on that. The only issue here is how can we give sustainably? How can we give in a way that does not end up hurting us? Because sometimes we think messing up our finances because we give is a good thing. So we end up saying like, oh, you know why my finances are so messed up right now? Because I've been helping out my family a lot. We almost like use that as an excuse to say like, my things are not going so well because I'm trying to help. And I think that's where the discussion is at the moment. That how can we balance that? How can we give and give a lot, but at the same time not mess up our finances? Coming back to your point, Tom, about giving cheerfully and about feeling good about giving. Tell you what, it feels even better, right? It feels even better when you have something to give, right? And you start looking around for someone to give to. I mean, it's happened to me a few times where for some reason my charity pot has been left to accumulate for a couple of months, and I hadn't had someone coming to me or having a situation where I had to give it out, and it kind of became a bit of a lump sum. And it got to a point where I'm like, right, now I've got this amount of money lying around here, and I really need to give it away because it's really not my money. I had put it aside for giving, and for some reason I haven't actually given for a couple of months. Therefore, I'm starting to look around for someone to actually help with that money, or whether a good cause, a charity, or whatever it is. And I can tell you that feeling when you actually do that is brilliant. And it's because for two reasons. One, because you absolutely are not worried about your finances. You're not worried that by doing that, you're missing out on something else, because literally that money was actually set aside for exactly what you're doing. And it makes a huge difference. It's different from if you're trying to give so that you're helping someone comes to you with a need and you're helping, but then that was your rent money, and you know that at the end of that month you're going to have trouble with your landlord. If you tell me you're still giving cheerfully in that circumstance, I'll have questions. I'll say, something is wrong here. That was your rent money. You're going to have problems at the end of the month. Probably you're going to end up homeless, and you're saying you're giving cheerfully. That raises questions. So that's the point we're discussing here: the sustainable giving, and how we can actually do that and incorporate that in our finances. So when we think of budgets, the way we think of budget is for rent and for food and for transport and for this. Also, we have to think of giving as well, because it's part of our lives. It's something that we always do. So because it takes our money to give, the same way it takes our money to pay rent and bills, then it only makes sense that giving has to be part of your budget. Because if it's not, then it's a recipe for disaster, I think. One final thought, and then we'll get going on the topic of budgeting. Sorry,
just before we carry on with one final thought, I just wanted to also contract with what Tom said about the market. We need to pull people out of the market. I think that's what a lot of us. I mean, if I sat down with a lot of people, especially as people who are in diaspora, a lot of us feel that because we've got the break, we feel the urge to try and get people out of the bucket, especially people who are at home. The thing is, and a lot of us end up making mistakes. Majority of the people I've spoken to, more than 50-60%, will tell you that the investment that they made at home trying to pull people out of the bucket, it was never successful. Because some of us, we want to impose our dreams on the people back at home, because we're talking about giving is mostly people back at home. And so we say, okay, fine, instead of me giving you £100 every month, why don't you set up a business? And because the other person on the other end hasn't invested in the business, so what normally happens is that person eats the money because he hasn't felt the pain of getting the money. And I've done it to a few of my relatives, over time, before I was a little wiser. I mean, there's a guy who said, I think the best way to invest is to find somebody who is passionate about something and then say, okay, fine, you come up with the 60%, I'll come up with the 40%, And when you start making money, your profits, I'll be getting 40, you'll be keeping 60. So I think that's a better way of trying to help people get out of the bucket. But from my experience, until someone wants to get out of that bucket, even if you try and help them, they will never get out of that bucket. So the best thing you can do is not to be inside that bucket for you and them as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Rennie. I'm scouring through the chat section here, and Boke says it must take a lot of self-control to see your charity pot as not your own, but something you have to give away. How did you reach that point? Maybe the scarcity mindset makes me think I have to spend everything that is more than I need. You're very right, Boke. It has something to do with mindset. And when we talk about budgeting, it's all about mindset. Because yes, when you budget, when you have different pots, you put money away, you may have several different accounts. We'll look at different ways of budgeting, and we'll have a discussion on that. But at the end of the day, all that is still in your control. So unless your mindset changes to a point where and that takes training. It takes time. You have to really train yourself to do that, and it's not easy. At first, it becomes very difficult, but it gets easier with time, as is with anything. I mean, a good example is the issue of tithing, for instance. For those who do not tithe, and I'm not in a conversation of tithing at the moment, but what I'm saying is, for those that have been in that situation before they started tithing, they couldn't imagine having to part away with 10% of the money. It's like, how are we going to do that? How are we going to survive without it? But then once they got to the hang of it, they got used to it. It's almost like they got to a point where they wouldn't even consider that their money. It's easy. They get the money. They don't even think about this goes. I'll never touch it. It's not my money. It's the same thing with budgeting. It's the same thing with what I call the charity fund. That with time, it gets to a point where you learn to look at that and say, that is not my money. And me actually using that has absolutely no difference from me stealing from a bank, because literally that is not, once I put it aside, it's not my money. It's not there to be borrowed. It's not there to be lent. It's not there to be anything. That is there to be given away. And I'm not talking about a lot of money here. I mean, it's just a little bit of what I can afford to do every month. I just put it aside. That's what I do. So it's that discipline. It takes discipline. Yes, it takes change of mindset. Absolutely. And that's what we're here to learn. That's what we're here to challenge each other and to kind of start thinking differently and really change our mindset and the way we do things. Because I strongly believe we can be better givers to our families back home, to our friends, to even people here. I mean, there is so much need around you right here in this very country that you live in. But we can be better givers if we become planned givers, and that's what I'm advocating this afternoon. Now let me just start our conversation on budgeting, and then we'll keep this conversation going as we continue, because it's still within the realms of what we're talking about, and then I'll bring people in to kind of say their thoughts as well. Yeah, sounds good. Now let's go. Allow me to share my screen. Right, this is where we are. We've done understanding money, we've done saving, we've done investing, we've done spending. So today we're continuing with budgeting. And I believe last time I left you with my definition of budgeting. Let me see if I can find that. Spending, Parkinson's law, Warren Buffett. Right. Budgeting. I think last time I left you with this definition of budgeting, and I said today we're going to have a bit of a conversation on this. And I challenged you guys and said, look, if you can write it down, and then when we get back, we'll kind of have a discussion. What you think of this definition, and how does this definition make sense to you? And then we can have a bit of discussion on that. So basically, my definition of budgeting is set a plan well in advance on how you intend to spend your money. Set a plan well in advance on how you intend to spend your money. And the keywords are those 4 words that I've highlighted and underlined. The first one is plan. The next one is advance. The third one is intend or intention. and the fourth one is your or yours. And I think those are keywords when it comes to budgeting. And that's what I want us to have a bit of a discussion on today. Let's look at the first word, plan. This is what we've been talking about. We were talking about giving and saying you need to plan a gift. And I think when we talk about budgeting, the first thing that has to come to mind is that you need to have a plan. A lot of people struggle with budgeting because they don't have a plan. They're thinking of budgeting as an abstract tool. They look at budgeting and they think of it as something that you just do just for the sake of, for the fun of it. For budgeting to really make sense to you, for budgeting to really make an impact in your financial life and in your finances in general, you first need to start with a plan. What do I mean by plan? You need to have a vision, a strategy, an idea of what you're trying to achieve before you even set up to spend your first penny. Okay. So for instance, if I'm planning to buy a house in the next 10 years, my budget is going to look very different from if I wanted to buy a house next year. If I want to become a millionaire in 5 years, my budget is going to look very different to if I have absolutely no ambition of becoming a millionaire. I just want to make ends meet every month. You understand? If I want to set up a charity and start putting money away and giving away and helping this, that, and the other, my budget is going to look very different to if I was planning to start a business. What I'm trying to say here is that you need a financial plan. You need to have a picture in mind of what you're trying to achieve, where you're trying to go. That can be a short-term plan. It can be something in that year. It can be something 5 years down the line. It can be something 10 years down the line. It can be even intergenerational. It can be a plan for your children, for instance. Okay. It could be you thinking about, right, I want my kids to have, to go to private school, when they go to secondary school. Maybe you just have kids in kindergarten at that time or in year one. And I think when they go to secondary school, I want to take them to private school. That's probably 7 years away. Okay. Your budget is going to look very different because your plans, your financial plans are different. You understand? So you might need to start putting money away to your education fund. Maybe you might need to have an education fund, something that you probably wouldn't need if you didn't have any children, for instance. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you think of budgeting, the first thing you need to think of is a plan. Do you have a plan? What is your financial plan? And I want to leave this to you as a challenge right now. What is your financial plan? Where do you want to be financially in the next 5 years? Where do you want to be financially in the next 10 years? Where do you want to be financially when you retire? I raised this question, I think, right at the beginning when we were talking about pensions and retirement. And we were talking about how much it takes to retire, if you guys remember that. And I remember, was it Grace that was almost spot on with her assessment on how much you need to retire thing. And these are important questions you need to ask yourself, and that's what plan is all about. You need to plan your retirement. You need to think what you want to achieve. Do you want to go traveling when you retire? Do you want to pay off your mortgage when you retire? So all those things, once you know exactly what you want for yourself financially, and you have that plan in mind, short-term, medium-term, and long-term, then you can start thinking of budgeting, because now you know how you need to allocate your funds and your resources to fulfill that plan. Because if you don't have a plan, or if your plan is sort of up in the air, changing every day, then your budget is not going to help you much. Your budget is going to be almost like a nuisance, because it's not there to achieve anything. And there is nothing that you can use it to measure to see whether you're becoming successful at what you're trying to achieve, because you don't have a plan to start with. So the first important thing is plan. Number two, advance. Plan, have a set plan well in advance. Now, before I go to the advance, let me go back to planning again. It's important that you write down a plan. I mean, a plan up in your head is not good enough. If you have a financial plan, write it down. Okay. If you're thinking of what you're trying to achieve, write it down. You have ideas of how you're going to achieve that, also write that down. After some time, you've learned something new, you've come to our seminars, you've learned a new idea, you think, oh, I need to refine my plan. Go and also add that into your notes, okay? Because once you write things down, then they become tangible, they become real, something you can go back to, something you can build upon, and that becomes a more solid plan. That's something that you're just thinking of in your mind, because we tend to brush off our thoughts a lot. We have lots of thoughts, good and bad, and lots of those get lost. Why? Because we haven't written them down, we haven't shared them, we haven't really worked on them. But once you write things down, then it becomes more of a concrete plan, something you can work through. Okay. So yeah, so let's go to the next one, which is advance. Set a plan well in advance. It's very important that your budget has to be something you do in advance, right? What do I mean by that? You don't go out shopping, right? You don't start writing a budget when you just entered the Marks and Spencers and you've seen that fancy dress that you really wanted. That's not the time for you to start budgeting. Because the reason is you'll be biased towards getting what you want at that moment than really being objective about your plan, your overall plan. See how this ties up together? If you have a plan, your budget should reflect the plan, not your impulses at any particular time. So when you're budgeting, you have to do it well in advance. You know, if I'm planning my weekly budget, then I have to do it at the beginning of the week. Okay, I don't wait till I'm walking down the street very hungry and I'm smelling the smell of KFC and I'm thinking, right now I need to budget for some KFC right now. That's not going to be a budget. I need to have had a budget at the beginning of the week that on Wednesday I'm going to have a KFC, because then I can set money aside for that. That becomes a budget. If I'm trying to make that budget on my way home while I'm hungry passing through KFC, that's not a budget. So it has to be well in advance, because then it becomes objective. Then you're not subjective, you're not doing it impulsively, but you're doing it objectively, and it's based on the plan and what you want for your finances and your financial future. And that becomes more robust in that sense. Okay. Third word, intent or intention. Budget has to be intentional. Okay. Now this goes hand in hand with the advanced one. It has to be, budget has to be something that you're doing deliberately, something that you have set out yourself to do, not something that you find yourself in a you don't budget as right. Now let me back up a little bit. Budgeting has to be a proactive measure, not a reactive measure. That's what I'm trying to say. What does that mean? It means you had a plan. It means you have a direction of where you want to go. You've set down what you're going to do with your money well in advance. Now you have to be intentional about how you go about executing your plan with your advanced budget, if you like. It means that you're proactively making steps to execute your own will, if you like, because you had a plan, something you really want for your life, something you set well in advance, very objectively, where you're trying to go. And here you are intentionally doing what you need to do to make that work. You remember when, Boke, when you asked the question about the issue of the discipline of setting money aside for charity, it all started with a plan. I want to be a better giver. I want to be more charitable. I've realized that over the years, I've been very haphazard with my giving. I probably haven't been a very good giver. Maybe if I look at my finances in general, I was giving so little percent. So I decided, right now, what I'm going to do, if I want to be giving, say, 5% or 10% of what my income is, then I have to set that aside, because that would make it more consistent. I started doing that, and I started becoming intentional in how I'm doing that. So I put it aside. I really stopped myself from spending it. At the beginning, it's very difficult, lots of impulses. You know, you have to really refrain yourself, because you're going to think, I want that. I haven't got money, but I've got that money lying around there. Out of charity, should I use it? And maybe I might put it back. You have to overcome all those things. But all this has to be intentional. You have to not allow yourself to be driven by emotions, because once you bring emotions into it, then obviously everything goes pear-shaped. So when it comes to budgeting, it has to be something you do intentional, something that you're doing it because that was your plan you set out to do from the beginning, and you've done that well in advance, and not just as an erratic reaction to your impulses in the moment. Okay. The final word is your or yours. Set a plan well in advance on how you intend to spend your money. It's quite ironic, isn't it? You have countries for instance, like most developing countries, they would sit down and set their budgets, their annual national budgets, which is way more than their resources. Why? Because somehow they've gotten used to the idea that they've got international aid, that someone else will come to rescue, someone else will come in and foot the bill for them. So someone sets a budget on someone else's purse, not their own purse. And yeah, I'm not trying to belittle foreign aid or international aid or what that would achieve to a nation, especially struggling nations, but that sets the wrong precedent, isn't it? Because it tells you that you're not master of your own fate. You're not in control of your own finances. That whatever it is you're trying to do is in the hands of someone else. So basically, you've surrendered control, and basically that's how these great nations, these developed nations, get to have control of developing countries, because once you control someone else's finances, then you've got that person on the ropes, and that's why they will always give foreign aid. Even when they're struggling themselves, they will still keep giving foreign aid. Why? Because it gives them the control over others. So it's the same thing on the spin of things. For those that are on the receiving end, receiving aid, really good, very important. It's very helpful. But if your budgeting is based on someone else's finance, you're bound to be let down. You're bound to be controlled. You're bound to surrender that control to someone else. And when you look at that, even at the personal level, it's amazing how easy it is sometimes to end up budgeting on someone else's money, budgeting on credit card money, budgeting on a loan that you are hoping to get. I've had conversations with people many times, and someone comes to you and comes up with a very well laid out plan on their finances, what they want to do, based on money they hope someone else will give, money they hope the bank will give, money they hope a friend will loan them. Okay, now that is not necessarily a bad thing, but if your budgeting is based on money that is not yours, borrowed or not, then you're already setting yourself up for failure, because if that person lets you down, you're doomed. If that person comes through and gives that money to you, you're still doomed in a way, because that was your money, probably it's a loan, and you have to pay it back. So budgeting, for a budget to really be, let me put it this way, ideally, a budget has to be based on your own resources. You look at yourself and say, right, this is what I have. It may be little, but it's all I have. How can I make this work? And that's where you start. Earlier, before we started formally, we were having a conversation, and I mentioned about the teachings of Jesus in the Bible. And I said it's quite interesting, because so many times when the disciples came to Jesus with their problems, Jesus always pointed them back to what they already have. You know, remember the story of feeding the 5,000. He went to them and said, look, what do you have? You know, you are thinking of sending these people away to a place you do not know, to a country you do not know. Why don't you look within yourself and see what you have and see whether you can sort that problem? And they say, oh, we've got so little, you know, because they had so little, they thought that wouldn't make any difference. But from that little, much came out of it. And we see that many times, you know, Moses, story of Moses, I gave that example as well. You know, he's thinking about saving the Israelites and going to God, hoping that God, maybe, I don't know what he's expecting God to do. And God tells him, what have you got in your hand? And he said, I've just got this stick. What is this stick going to do? But we know what that stick did eventually. So at the end of the day, when you think of budgeting, you have to think of the resources that you already have, and do not belittle what you have. It may look little in your hands, but that can make a huge difference when you have the right mindset and discipline on how you're budgeting it, because that's where it all starts. Everything else comes and builds on top of that. If you don't have that discipline of handling the little you have, then it doesn't matter how much you're given, it will be the same problem. So that's my definition, guys. Set a plan well in advance on how you intend to spend your money. What do you guys think? Let me bring you guys in and see what you guys think. Who wants to go?
I think that the main thing here is self-discipline, isn't it? Really, I mean, you know what you're saying earlier about stick to your plan and don't let others distract you from your goal. Yeah,
absolutely.
So basically, stick to your plan. You know, don't let other things get in your way. So yeah,
absolutely. Thank you, Tombi. Anyone else wants to come in?
Yeah, myself, let me also share there. I can agree with my brother who was just finished to speak about discipline, because I take myself an example when I'm learning something, and especially when I want to listen from other people, how they get involved in what we are discussing. For example, if you don't have discipline, which means you can waste time even to set the budget, because it's meaningless when you go to the supermarket. That's when you start now searching, where did you write your budget and what you are coming to buy. For example, myself, I find like I always laugh because I know that I'm making a big mistake. I come with food, maybe a big bag of shopping with food and this and that. When I put down, I find my children also coming with food. So we end up laughing because we didn't plan, we didn't have budget. So that's the lack of discipline. We put down the budget, but still we don't use it. So it's wastage of time. So we better go back to these teachings, because when you learn and apply, that's the main thing. But if you learn without applying, is meaningless of this knowledge. So thank you so much. I think I learn a lot.
Thank you so much. Stephen, you want to come in? I can see you talking. You're on mute, Steve. You're on mute. Stephen, you're on mute.
You can't hear you.
Right. Okay. Again, I want to say thank you to Mom by being super honest, you know. And what I can say, to be honest, is a small little things that we don't pay attention that really cost us a lot. You know, it's like, oh, this is just £1, or I'm just gonna pick exactly like that. But you know, the small, Mr. Ron said, the small, simple disciplines. You know, those are the things that possibly I think we need to start harnessing from now on. And then because you see, we grew up with living by default. You know, you just wake up and the day runs you, instead of you running the day, or you running the life, or running your week. The week runs you. So it's important that we're learning, and I hope that we will implement these things and, you know, reap the benefit out of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Anybody else wants to come in?
I think I'll just say a couple of things. You've covered the topic really well, so you can't really add on to that. But I think I think what, for me, when I was on the other side, and I realized, and a problem still, I'm not that good with my budgeting. How do we put this knowledge into practice? Discipline is it, but we could look at it in terms of I've been on the internet, and there's tools that are there that help us do the budgeting. There's tools, if you just go online, they will come in. But most of all, if we also go and check our bank statements, just let's say for a month, and because we can remember, and there's things that show us how much we spend our money, it's easy to realize that most of our monies that we spend goes out on unnecessary purchases, especially in today's world where the internet is at your fingertips. You just go in and browse on Facebook, and they are advertising things, and all of a sudden you get tempted to buy these things. So that's probably all I just wanted to add on.